I found love letters in his pickup. They weren't meant for me. I'll never forget the exact moment it happened. It was a warm Sunday afternoon, the kind of day that should have felt peaceful. The birds were chirping outside, the smell of cut grass lingered in the air, and I was simply doing what I had done hundreds of times over the years, tidying up my husband's old pickup truck. That truck, it was practically part of our marriage. Had driven it since the kids were small, and it had carried our family on camping trips, grocery runs, and late-night drives home from family gatherings. It smelled of leather, motor oil, and his aftershave, scents that had always brought me comfort. I wasn't suspicious. Not in the slightest. My husband, Mark, had always been the steady one. The dependable one. The man everyone trusted. He was respected at work, loved by our neighbors, and admired by our grown children. If you had asked me that morning what I thought of my marriage, would have said it wasn't perfect, but it was solid. After 30+ years together, I believed we had built something unshakable. So, when I reached under the passenger seat and felt thick folded paper, different from the crumpled receipts and fast food napkins I was expecting, I wasn't alarmed. Just curious. I pulled it out and looked at it. A neatly folded envelope, cream-colored, with handwriting on the front. My heart skipped a beat. For one split second, I thought, could it be? Maybe after all these years, he had written something for me. Something romantic. Something to remind me of the love we once shared so easily. I smiled to myself, thinking of how rare handwritten letters had become. Maybe he had been keeping this as a surprise, waiting for the right moment. But the second I opened it, my world cracked. The words stared back at me, "My love, I can't stop thinking about last night. The way you laughed, the way you held me, it's burned into my heart. I don't know how I'm supposed to go on pretending, but for you, I will. Until we can find a way to be together." My hands began to shake. My eyes darted to the bottom of the page, desperate to see a name, desperate for some explanation. And there it was, not my name. Not even close. I froze, the air heavy in my chest. My vision blurred as tears threatened to spill, but I forced myself to stay calm. My logical mind tried to jump in, maybe it was old, maybe it belonged to someone else, maybe, but then I saw it. Under the seat, tucked neatly with a ribbon, was a small stack of envelopes. Letters. Dozens of them. All written in that same beautiful, feminine handwriting. All addressed to him. And not one of them was from me, or for me. I sat there for what felt like hours, though it was probably only minutes. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it echoing in my ears. I wanted to throw them out the window, to burn them, to erase them from existence. But instead, I reached for another letter, almost against my own will. "You make me feel alive again," it read. "I never thought I'd find this kind of love at this age. Every time you hold me, I forget the rest of the world exists." I dropped it back into the pile, my breath coming out in short gasps. Alive again? What about me? What about the years I had given him? The nights I stayed up nursing sick children, the sacrifices I made, the pieces of myself I had given away to keep our family together? Was I not enough? Anger mixed with grief, and grief mixed with disbelief. My first instinct was to confront him right then and there, to storm into the house and demand answers. But another part of me, quieter, more cautious, told me to wait. To think. To plan. So, I sat there in that pickup, staring at those letters, clutching the life I thought I had, realizing in slow, excruciating detail that it might all be a lie. And that was the day the unraveling began. I carried those letters into the house like they were made of fire. I held them out in front of me, careful not to let them touch my chest, as though if they got too close, they'd burn a hole right through my heart. I placed them on the kitchen table and just stared at them. My kitchen, the space where I had cooked countless meals, hosted holidays, laughed with my children, suddenly felt foreign. Cold. It was like I was standing inside a stranger's home. I sat down. My hands were trembling, and I folded them together to keep them still. I kept thinking, this can't be real. This can't be my life. For 33 years, Mark had been my anchor. He was the one who fixed the leaky faucets, grilled on Sundays, and kissed me goodnight even when we were too tired for words. Sure, we had our ups and downs, every marriage does, but never, not once, had I suspected another woman. But the letters told a different story. A hidden story. His other story. I forced myself to open another one. The paper shook between my fingers as I read, "You make me feel like a teenager again. When I see you smile, my whole world lights up. I count the days until we can sneak away again." My stomach turned. Sneak away? Again? How long had this been happening? Months? Years? I thought back over recent months. The late nights at work. The extra errands. The unexplained overtime. I brushed them off as normal, as the burden of a hard-working man trying to keep our lives comfortable. I even defended him when friends teased about how much time he spent away from home. Had I really been that blind? A part of me wanted to call him immediately, scream, demand explanations. But another voice inside me said, no, wait. Watch. Don't let him know what you found. Not yet. So, I waited. That night, when Mark came home, I studied him carefully. He walked in whistling, set his keys on the counter, kissed me on the cheek like he always did. His routine was flawless, familiar, comforting even. But now, instead of love, I felt suspicion dripping into every corner of my mind. Long day? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Yeah, he said, sighing as he loosened his boots. Meetings ran late. You know how it is. I forced a smile. Dinner's almost ready. We ate together at that same kitchen table where the letters had sat just hours before. He talked about work, the weather, the neighbor's new dog. I nodded, pretending to listen, though every word he spoke sounded like a lie. How could he sit across from me, knowing what he was hiding? How could he smile at me, laugh with me, when there was someone else who had his heart? That night, as he slept beside me, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. My mind was racing, my heart aching. I wanted to shake him awake, shove the letters in his face, and scream, "Who is she? How could you do this to me?" But I didn't. Instead, I stared at the shadows on the ceiling and realized something terrifying. I didn't even know who my husband really was anymore. Over the next week, I became a detective in my own home. Quiet. Watchful. Careful. I checked his laundry for traces, receipts, notes, anything. I noticed how he guarded his phone, how he suddenly stepped outside to take calls. Had never done that before. And the letters, oh, those letters haunted me. I read them over and over until I could almost recite them by heart. They painted a picture of a man deeply in love, but not with me. With someone else. The woman's words were filled with longing. She wrote about their secret places, their laughter, their shared dreams. She spoke of a future together. One day, it will just be us, she wrote in one. Until then, I'll cherish every stolen moment we have. Every word was a dagger. I started to wonder, who was she? Did I know her? Was she younger? Prettier? Someone from his work? Someone I had met at a barbecue or waved to at the grocery store? Every woman I passed in town became a suspect in my mind. Every smile he gave, every laugh he shared outside our home, it all felt poisoned. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. But most of all, I wanted the truth. So, I made a plan. I put the letters back where I had found them, under the seat of his pickup. I tied them neatly with the ribbon, careful to leave no trace that I had ever touched them. And then I waited. The next day, I watched from the kitchen window as he climbed into his truck. I studied his face, his movements. Did he know? Did he sense my eyes on him? He reached under the seat, pulled out the bundle, and smiled to himself. And in that single moment, my heart broke all over again. It was real. All of it. That night, I couldn't pretend anymore. Over dinner, I asked him casually, "Anything interesting happened today?" He looked at me, his eyes calm, his face unreadable. "No, not really. Just the usual. Just the usual." I excused myself, went into the bathroom, and locked the door. I stared at my reflection, and for the first time in decades, I didn't recognize the woman looking back at me. A wife. A mother. A loyal partner. And yet invisible to the man she had built her life with. Tears streamed down my face as I whispered to myself, "What am I going to do?" I didn't sleep for nights. Every time I closed my eyes, the words from those letters burned through my mind. I'd see her handwriting, hear her words in my head, and then turn to look at the man lying next to me, breathing deeply, as if nothing was wrong. It was unbearable. I knew I couldn't keep pretending forever. I had to know who she was. I had to hear it from his mouth. But I also knew Mark. If I confronted him too soon, he'd deny, twist, or find a way to make me feel crazy. He was good with words, calm under pressure. And I was too raw, too broken. So, I decided to get smart. I started small. I asked casual questions, little feelers. "Who did you talk to today? Where exactly was that meeting? What did you have for lunch?" He answered smoothly, naturally, without hesitation. Too smoothly. Like a man who had already rehearsed his lies. So, I went deeper. One afternoon, when he was in the shower, I picked up his phone. My hands shook so badly I could barely swipe the screen. Had never locked it before, but now, there it was. A passcode. A brand new barrier between us. I stared at those numbers glowing on the screen and realized something chilling. The man who used to hand me his phone to order pizza now didn't trust me enough to even glance at his messages. I put it back before he noticed, my stomach in knots. That night, I lay awake again, listening to the soft hum of his breathing. The anger inside me was growing, mixing with fear and grief, until it felt like it would swallow me whole. I needed proof. So, the next morning, when he left for work, I followed him. I know, I sound like one of those women in a crime drama, peeking around corners, heart racing. But that was me. I drove a few cars behind him, keeping my distance. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard they cramped. He didn't go to work. Instead, he drove to the little diner on the edge of town. The kind of place we used to go when we were first married, before life got so busy. I parked down the street, pulse pounding, and watched. He sat in a booth. 10 minutes later, a woman walked in. I couldn't see her face clearly, but I saw how his lit up. I saw how he stood, how he touched her hand before she slid into the booth. It wasn't casual. It wasn't innocent. It was the kind of touch that carried history, intimacy. They leaned in close, talking, laughing softly, like two teenagers with a secret. And in that moment, I knew, she wasn't just a fling. She wasn't just a mistake. She was someone he cared about deeply. I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. I wanted to march into that diner, slam the letters down on the table, and watch the color drain from his face. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I drove home, shaking so hard I could barely keep the car steady. I walked into the kitchen, collapsed at the table, and sobbed into my hands. 33 years. 3 children. A lifetime of memories. And now this. That evening, he came home smiling, carrying takeout like nothing was wrong. "Thought I'd give you a break from cooking," he said, setting the bags down. I forced myself to look at him. To really look. His familiar face, the lines around his eyes, the man I had shared half my life with, and all I could see was betrayal. Over dinner, I asked casually, "How was work?" "Busy," he said. Without blinking. And that was it. That was the moment I knew. He was never going to tell me the truth on his own. He was going to keep lying until I dragged it out of him. So, I made a decision. I would confront him. Not with tears. Not with begging. But with facts. With evidence. With the truth he couldn't escape. I went to the drawer where I had hidden copies of the letters. Yes, I had copied them, every single one. I knew he might try to destroy the originals, claim they never existed. So I had my own set, tucked away where he'd never find them. I laid them out on the table, neat and sharp like weapons. And I waited. When he walked through the door that Friday evening, tired and loosened tie hanging from his collar, I didn't greet him with a kiss. I didn't ask about his day. I simply pointed to the table. "What's this?" he asked, frowning. "You tell me," I said. My voice was steady, but my heart was pounding so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. He picked up one of the letters, glanced at it, and for the first time in decades of knowing him, I saw something rare, his face drained of color. He opened his mouth to speak, but nothing came out. That silence was louder than any confession. When he saw those letters spread across the table, I swear, for the first time in our entire marriage, Mark didn't know what to say. His mouth opened, then shut again, like a man who'd just been caught in a trap. I sat there, arms folded, my heart beating like a war drum, but my voice came out calm. Too calm. "Go on," I told him. "Explain." He picked up one of the letters, glanced at it, and forced out a little laugh. "Honey, this isn't what you think." "Not what I think." "That's what they always say, isn't it? Like somehow the words on the page, in another woman's handwriting, were just a misunderstanding." I leaned forward. "So what is it, Mark? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've been having an affair behind my back." He shook his head quickly, waving his hands like he could erase the evidence right off the table. "No, no. You've got it wrong. These letters, they don't mean anything. She's just a friend. Someone who got carried away. A friend. Writing about last nights together. About stolen moments. About building a future." I just stared at him. "Do you expect me to believe that?" I asked. My voice cracked a little, but I steadied it. "That a friend writes love letters, and you keep them under your truck seat like they're treasures?" He rubbed the back of his neck, pacing now. I could see the sweat starting to form at his temples. "Look, I didn't ask for this. She came to me. I didn't encourage it. I didn't want to hurt you." That line cut deeper than any knife. He didn't want to hurt me? As if hiding a secret lover was some noble sacrifice. "So you let her write you letters, and you just what? Collected them like souvenirs?" I asked, my voice trembling with rage. His eyes darted away from mine. He couldn't hold my gaze anymore. "I didn't know how to stop it," he muttered. I stood then, the chair scraping against the floor. My hands were shaking, but I jabbed a finger at the letters. "Don't you dare stand there and act like you're the victim here. Don't you dare tell me you didn't know how to stop it. You had 33 years to remember what fidelity means. 33 years to remember what vows sound like." He finally looked at me, his face pale. "I love you," he said, almost whispering. I laughed, a sharp, broken sound. "You love me? Then who are these for?" I slapped the pile of letters. "Because they sure as hell aren't for me." Silence filled the room. Heavy. suffocating. He opened his mouth again, fumbling. It didn't mean anything. It was a mistake. I swear, she doesn't mean as much as you think. I stepped closer, my voice low now, shaking not with weakness, but with fury. Don't lie to me. I saw you, Mark. At the diner. With her. His head snapped up, eyes wide. And just like that, the mask slipped. For a second, I saw the truth written all over his face, the guilt, the panic, the realization that I knew more than he ever thought I would. He sank into a chair, burying his face in his hands. And for a moment, he looked small. Weak. Not the strong husband I had leaned on for decades, but a man cornered by his own lies. I didn't want you to find out like this, he said quietly. That sentence hit me harder than any confession. He didn't deny it anymore. He didn't fight. He just admitted, in his own pathetic way, that it was true. All I could do was stand there, staring at the man I thought I knew, realizing I didn't know him at all. After that night, nothing was the same. Mark sat at the table with his head in his hands, muttering excuses, trying to explain, trying to soften the truth he had already spilled. But I couldn't hear him anymore. Not really. Every word out of his mouth sounded like static, because all I could think about were those letters and the woman behind them. For days afterward, our house felt like a battlefield. He kept trying to talk, to patch things up with promises I didn't believe anymore. He told me he still loved me. That it was just a phase. That he never meant to let it go this far. That he couldn't imagine life without me. But here's the thing, he had imagined life without me. He had written about it, dreamed about it, with her. And those words, written in another woman's hand, felt more real than anything he said to me now. I'd look at him across the room and wonder, was it ever real? The anniversaries, the family vacations, the nights we stayed up talking? Or was he always searching for something more, something I couldn't give him? I tried to find anger big enough to carry me, but what I felt most was grief. Grief for the man I thought I married. Grief for the woman I thought I was, safe, cherished, chosen. One night, as he begged me to listen, I finally said it out loud, "You broke something in me, Mark. And I don't know if it can ever be fixed." He cried then. I'd only seen him cry a handful of times in all our years together. But those tears didn't move me. If anything, they made me angrier. Because I realized he wasn't crying for me. He was crying for himself. For the life he was about to lose. I packed a bag and went to stay with my sister for a while. I needed space to breathe, to think, to remember who I was without him. For the first time in decades, I slept in a bed alone, not because he was away on a business trip, not because I was angry for a night, but because I chose to. And you know what? As painful as it was, there was a strange peace in it too. I don't know yet what the future holds. Maybe I'll forgive him. Maybe I won't. Maybe 33 years of marriage can't be erased by a stack of letters. Or maybe those letters revealed a truth that can never be buried again. All I know is this, once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. Once the trust is gone, nothing is ever the same. And now, I'm left with a question that haunts me day and night, should I fight for this marriage, or should I walk away and start over? Tell me if you were in my place, after discovering those letters, would you stay and try to rebuild, or would you leave it all behind?